The following is a review of a research paper that is based on the topic of safety levels of ingested caffeine in the human body. I'm making this video in keeping the people in consideration who ask questions like, what is the upper cap of caffeine intake that they can have? Either they are someone who are working out, or let's say they are someone who are just having an overdose of caffeine over the last couple of months because of their busy schedule, and they just have a sip of coffee in order to keep their eyes open, keep their eyes and mind open. So this video will be in two parts. This particular video talks about caffeine, the upper cap, and the effects on the human body in general. There is a second research paper that I'll take up in maybe in upcoming video or in the later videos, which talks about the ways in which caffeine elevates endurance and strength related training programs. Definitely we will be talking about the pros and cons of caffeine in this particular video. We will definitely cover a few correlations, like if you're talking about some extreme cases like causes of death, cancer, and other such fatal cases. Although few in number, I have already stated that these are more of correlations. We will talk about the difference in the effects when it comes to the gender and the age of the subject. And we will also talk about the fact that the time you're consuming caffeine on your daily basis, the dosage that you're consuming, how these things affect your mental health, your sleep cycle, and various biochemical reactions that are occurring in your body. Also, if you're a sports person or someone who is working in a metropolitan area in a tight schedule, and you just have started taking up pre-workout supplements, a common question arises among these folks is that, is the caffeine content in my particular pre-workout, let it be XYZ brand, is it too much for me? Because if you look at the pre-workout supplements out there in the market, the caffeine content may vary from 150 milligram to 250 milligrams per dosage, or per scoop, as you may call. So, without any further delay, let's get started on the research paper, The Safety of Ingested Caffeine, a Comprehensive Review. So in the abstract, what they try to talk about is the ever-increasing amount of caffeine intake among people. One of the reasons being the fact that more and more people are now working in front of screens, and they need something in order to keep them awake. And the other reason being caffeine that is not coming from natural resources, but the over-addition of caffeine in almost every food item or beverage that you are intaking. So obviously, they start by talking about the natural sources like your chocolate, coffee, and tea, and then they slowly talk about the beverages. So you find that when you're talking about natural resources, often the content is not up to the mark, not up to the limit where you need to be concerned about. But if you're talking about some sort of beverages, particularly the energy drinks, the amount of caffeine should be monitored. So they have provided with some examples, particularly using chocolate as one of the common examples, and then they have listed some products which you might generally use, And you might be surprised finding that this addition of caffeine is not only limited to dietary elements, but shampoo, soap, lip balm, eye cream, body scrub, and body lotion. Now coming to the part where caffeine is an ingredient or a constituent of a lot of drugs. I'm sure that this should not concern a lot of people out there, because drugs like Midol and Vancus are not something that somebody would take voluntarily unless they need some sort of drugs that have been prescribed by doctors due to an underlying medical condition. But you'll see that even when you're talking some sort of drugs, 200 milligram, 50 milligram, or anything that averages 200 milligram or 150 milligram is considered as a high amount of caffeine, something that would need a doctor's prescription if you're someone who are wanting to continue that. Now, in the next section, estimates of caffeine consumption, they are talking about the statistic, a general uptrend that they have observed. I think this is more of the part if you're interested to know about the statistic, as I often believe that statistic is true in general, but what matters is a personalized approach to fitness and health, because although these research papers and these trends talk about subjects that follow a particular, subjects that fall in a particular category, but when it comes to health and fitness, every person is unique. There are a lot of things that can go right, and there are a lot of things that can go wrong for one. So if you want to have a look at worldwide statistics, it's good. But I think we should come to the part where we start talking about the individual effects, how it can affect you as an individual. So obviously I know that there are a lot of people who are not even aware of the chemical composition and what it does once it gets in your body. It's one thing, having an experience of the effects is one thing, and understanding that how it works is another. So what caffeine does is that it binds to your adenosine receptors. So basically a lot of biochemical reactions that are occurring in your body. So let's say your sleep cycle, your memory, your learning, and a lot of your neurotransmitters functions. Caffeine can affect that. Obviously they have mentioned what happens at toxic doses, but I don't think that it's common for someone to reach that amount. And you see that you should be able to understand that it's difficult to replicate such scenarios when you're trying to do a research over subjects, because you cannot force someone to take toxic doses, be it anything, not only caffeine, for a prolonged time, because I don't think the subjects would even agree to the conditions. It's one thing to do a research on weight loss where you're trying to monitor different calories, because what damage it can do is nothing compared to having something as serious as toxic consumption of caffeine over a prolonged time. So once you understand that how caffeine is working and how it is affecting a lot of biochemical reactions in your body, you just talk about the absorption and metabolism. So in this section they talk about how caffeine affects in terms of its concentration levels differently in humans, in adults and in children. And obviously you might have seen on the labels of lots of beverage drinks that in general caffeine is not advised for students, children below 18. They say that absorption is not very much dependent upon your sex and genetic background. But they have also claimed that specific studies are still needed to confirm this premise. So I think the main conclusion that you can draw from this is that the peak concentration hours and the fact that children should not be consuming a lot of caffeine. Now, another important paragraph that I'd like you to read is the circadian rhythms, which is one of the common problems that people face. Circadian rhythm is generally referring to the cycle of your body, like the 24-hour cycle that your body recognizes that now it's time to sleep, now it's time to wake up. So, because caffeine can alter sleep, it may also change the circadian rhythm, leading to change in expression patterns of. So the second part is not that much important to be understood, because obviously we don't want to go into cytochrome P450, but you see, you need to understand that because caffeine can alter sleep, it may also change the circadian rhythm. So your sleep cycle might be altered, and hence your body response to when do you sleep and when do you wake up might change. Now, they have talked about pregnancy, having caffeine in case of infancy. Now, I think this is of common knowledge that you might have read on a lot of labels, a lot of beverages, that it's not advised for pregnant women and small children to take caffeine intake. And obviously one of the major reasons, scientific reasons, is that the half-life of is in children is higher in comparison to adults. So you see that it's not even like by a smaller margin. It's like between 65 and 130 hours when compared to 3 to 7 hours in adults. So now I think we should come back to the part where we are talking about the results and what is the upper cap. So obviously there are very rare cases of fatality using this. Death from caffeine ingestion appears to be rare, but we should be aware of what is the upper cap. So let's straight away go to that point. I mean, there are various things, as I mentioned, that they have tried to tackle a lot of things, even if that was not the causation, but a sort of correlation existed. So you can jump to the part that you're interested when you're reading the research paper, but the focus of this video is finding what is the amount that you can intake. So they mentioned that according to age, 400 milligram per day in healthy adults, 100 milligram per day in healthy adolescents, and 2.5 milligram per kg per day in healthy children less than 12 years old. Now, in my opinion, why would someone less than 12 years old even need caffeine? I don't remember anyone, my batchmates or me, consuming a lot of coffee during those days. And for adults, if you're talking about, if you're someone who works out a lot, I think even if you're capping it up to 300 or 250 milligram per day, I think that's more than enough. I think you should be able to distribute it throughout the day, right before the workout. You should keep the concentration higher. Maybe 50 to 100 milligram is more than enough. And the other remaining half fraction of what is left of the upper cap should come from your coffee and other natural resources. So I think in this video we were able to cover the aspect of caffeine in general, what effects it has on your body from a scientific point of view, and what is the upper cap that you should have. In the other video we will try to talk about caffeine, how caffeine acts as your performance enhancer when it comes to endurance and strength related training. So see you in the next video. I'll provide the link of this article in the description. Thank you.